My name is Riley. I make my living going where most divers don't even like to look. Black water, no visibility, no sound except the regulator pulling breath in and out. I've been doing this for, 16 years. Started small, springs, sinkholes, flooded quarries, move deeper every season. You do enough of these dives, you stop thinking about the surface as home. You start to feel more honest under pressure. The noise in your head fades. The world up there runs too fast, full of people pretending they know what they're doing. Down here, you either know or you die. My father used to take me spearfishing when I was a kid. We'd go off the panhandle, out past the oil rigs, where the water turns that heavy green, He'd tell me, "Don't fight the ocean, boy. It doesn't care." He died when I was 19. Boat accident, not even a storm. I remember standing on the dock, looking out at nothing but glass water, thinking it looked like a lie. Since then, I spent most of my life below it. I guess that's how I make sense of things, by getting close enough to the dark until I can see what's inside it. People call me the best in the business. They do. That's not modest, it's just math. I have done over 300 certified cave dives, logged a few dozen unofficial ones that get me blacklisted if anybody ever saw the footage. I have mapped systems that weren't even on the charts, rescued a team once that got trapped 3 chambers in. 2 of them made it out. The company that hired me put my face in a brochure after that. Riley Quinn. The deep doesn't scare him. Looked good in print. I liked it. I won't lie about that. That's the thing about a reputation. At first, it's a reward, and then it becomes a leash. People start expecting miracles, and once they do, you start believing you owe them one. You start to push the edge a little harder each time, just to stay the person they think you are. I've made peace with that. It's the cost of being known for something most people are too afraid to try. Lately, I've been working contracts for private biotech outfits. They don't care about maps or records, just samples. Strange bacteria, coral growths. Anything that might heal, regrow, or sell. The money's stupid. Enough to fund my own rig, keep a team on call, replace my gear after every job. They say it's for medicine, for research. Maybe that's truth. But mostly it's because the ocean's the last place left where you can still find things no one's seen before. I have more stories on that in a bit. I don't talk much outside the water. Don't need to. Diving gives you a kind of quiet that doesn't exist anywhere else. You start to crave it. You start measuring life in PSI, in air consumption, in how steady your line hand feels when visibility drops to 0. Up top, I don't sleep much. I watch dive footage instead. People ask me why I do it. Why I keep going deeper when I've already proven myself a dozen times over. I tell them it's because every cave has a voice. It doesn't speak, just waits. You drop in, and for a while, you're the only thing alive that knows it exists. That's enough reason for me. I work with 2 people, always the same 2. That's not usual in this business. Most divers come and go. Some burn out. Others panic on a deep run and don't come back. But we have stuck together for 4 years now. Trust matters more than skill when you're 400 feet down and 2 turns from the exit. Marcus is the oldest of us. Ex-Navy, quiet voice, always steady. Never raises his tone, not even when things go sideways. You could be 10 seconds from blackout, and he'd still talk to you like you're ordering lunch. That's why I keep him close. He watches everything. Depth, timing, gear, the line tension, even the expressions we make before a dive. He's the kind of guy who never uses 5 words when 3 will do. He doesn't talk about what he did in the Navy. My guess is deep sea recovery or something classified. The way he handles a rebreather or checks over the bailout gear tells me he's been in tighter spots than most of us can imagine. I have seen him spot a faulty valve by ear. He never boasts. Doesn't need to. We call him the anchor when we're joking around. Even Laura picked up on it, and she hasn't even known him long. Laura's the biologist. She's in her 20s. Smart, curious, way too young to be diving caves like these. But she learns fast and she doesn't scare easy. She isn't a professional diver, not by training, but she got certified quick after joining us. She's the only one who can identify the stuff we find. Microbes, eggs, tissue samples. She knows what's valuable and what's just wet rock. She's good at keeping things light. Makes bad jokes before we drop. Sometimes they're funny. Most times they just make the silence seem smaller. She asks a lot of questions. Always writing things down. Always thinking a few steps ahead. I don't know if she wants to discover something or prove herself. Could be both. The job is simple, on paper. We're hired by private marine biotech companies. They fund the expeditions and keep everything off the record. No federal involvement, no permits. They're after one thing: biological samples. The rarer the better, especially anything that can't be traced back to the surface. There's a compound they care about more than anything else. It's called enzyme 42. It helps tissue heal faster than anything they've ever seen. Lab-grown skin closes in seconds. Nerve cells regrow. Muscle repairs itself without scar tissue. They found it once in an egg. A single egg pulled out of a collapsed trench back in the 90s. The diver who brought it up didn't survive the return trip. Nobody ever found his body. They think the egg belonged to a species they call sea emperors. Nothing official. No photos, no confirmed samples since then. Just theories and sonar records that don't add up. But if the enzyme came from a real creature, it is worth more than anything else on the planet. And that's why we're here. The Devil's Throat is a submerged cave system off the Florida Panhandle. It starts with a sinkhole in the Gulf, wide enough to drop a small boat into. Locals call it the mouth. From the surface, it looks just like a dark patch in the water, but once you descend, it turns into a maze of limestone tunnels. The pressure down there can crush you if you go too deep, and the current can flip in minutes when the tide changes. It's not on most charts. Officially, it's marked as a geological instability zone. Unstable rock, unpredictable shifts. Divers avoid it. No one logs practice dives there. People who try, well, they don't come back. The sonar scans show moving shapes bigger than submarines. Some say they're just caves shifting. Others think they move on their own. We're the first team to go back in 20 years. The company wants us to go as deep as possible, collect samples, and get out. That's the plan. We started the dive briefing an hour before launch. I always run it myself. Doesn't matter how many times we've done this kind of job, you go over the plan. Out loud. You look each person in the eye, and you don't assume they remember it. You make sure they know it. Repetition matters. You don't think clearly under pressure unless the plan's already muscle memory. I laid out the gear on the bench in front of us. 3 full sets, 1 for each diver. 5 oxygen tanks per person, each one topped off and triple checked for pressure and seal. Every tank was labeled with color-coded tape, marked for depth and order of use. We don't use standard open circuit scuba. Our suits run closed circuit rebreathers. That means we recycle exhaled gas, extend bottom line, and keep bubbles to a minimum. But rebreathers can fail, so each tank is a backup. We also set emergency tanks along the route. One tank every 100 meters, clipped to the guideline. If something breaks, you fall back, grab a tank, and get out. That's the rule. No freelancing, no hero dives. All right, 3 divers, I said. 5 tanks each, 300 meters of safety line. I paused. Objective is Chamber Delta. Laura looked up at that. She tapped her tablet and brought up the cave map. She zoomed in on the lower half. The Devil's Throat system branches out in 5 main directions from the primary sinkhole: Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and Echo. 4 of them have been partially mapped, at least to a certain point. Only Delta was left unfinished. Drones had been sent into Delta in 2004. They got in about 100 meters before the footage cut out. Not an equipment failure, just scrambled data. Glitchy, corrupted, like something interfered with the signal. Most people figured it was just the pressure of the mineral content in the rock. But I don't guess when it comes to diving. You go in prepared, or you don't go in at all. I stepped to the map Laura was projecting. I pointed to the route. From entry, we're going 270 meters horizontal, 110 meters vertical. We follow the main tunnel, fork left at marker 7, descend past the ridge. At the second bend, we switch to crawl mode. It's a tight fit past there. If we don't reach the chamber in 90 minutes, we turn back. No exceptions. Laura nodded and tapped the record icon on her tablet. She always logs every briefing: voice notes, GPS tags, personal readings, and environmental data. That's how she handles pressure. She tracks everything. Marcus didn't say anything, but I saw him coiling the line again from scratch. He always does it himself. The guideline is bright yellow, made from a high-strength synthetic. It has directional knots every 5 meters. Pull forward, you feel the knot one way. Pull back, moves the other. That's how you know which way is out, even blind. There's no GPS down there. No signal. Just line and time. I kept going. Objective is a fossilized nest. The lab flagged it in the drone scan. It's a formation in Chamber Delta that shows a cluster of shell-like structures, organic in shape. Could be mineral, could be actual remains. The lab's interested in one thing, and that is residue. Define residue, Laura said, now looking up. Anything sticky, crusted, or embedded in the wall, I replied. They're looking for biomaterial, especially if it shows signs of growth. She raised her eyebrows slightly. So we're hoping for a trail. Not a trail, I began. A sample of enzyme 42. That changed the room. Even Marcus paused. Enzyme 42, it's not just a lab compound. It's the reason any of us were even on this job. The last confirmed sample came from an egg pulled out of a collapsed trench near the Cayman Rise back in '97. The diver brought it to the surface, but didn't survive the trip back. The egg cracked during decompression. What leaked out of it was like anything else ever recorded. Cells soaked in the enzyme regenerated. Fast. Too fast. Skin closed over itself. Nerve tissue reconnected. The labs couldn't reproduce it synthetically. Every test since has failed. The company we were diving for owned the rights to that original sample. They'd spent 20 years sending drones and divers into caves like this, trying to find more. Most came back with nothing. A few never came back at all. We'd trained for 3 months. Dry runs, deep dives in flooded quarries, night sessions, emergency drills. We knew the layout, we knew the markers. We knew the signs of nitrogen narcosis and rebreather failure. We knew what we were walking into. And like I said before, the money was good. They don't offer numbers like that for coral or sponge samples. It was the kind of pay that solves problems, that ends loans, that puts your name on a lab or your kid in a better school. Laura played it like she was chasing discovery, but I'd seen her contract. I knew what she was getting. Marcus didn't say anything about the pay, but he showed up to every prep session early and never asked questions. And that told me enough. I started checking the dive packs, starting with Laura's. Regulators, valves, pressure gauge, weight balance. Everything passed. Marcus checked mine while I worked. That's how we do it. Cross-checks. One diver checks, the other verifies. You don't leave it to chance. And that's when the sonar chirped. Not a sharp alarm, just a long, low ping. All 3 of us turned toward the monitor. The screen showed a slow, wide return. One thick shape, just for a second. Then gone. Not an error beep. Wasn't glitchy or broken. It looked like something had passed through the scan grid just outside the sinkhole. Laura squinted at the display. "That's not a fault," she said. Marcus stepped in. "Run it again." She did. The pulse came back, once, then again. Then it stopped. We stared at the screen for almost a minute. No movement, no follow-up. Just the same strange pattern. A return big enough to register, but without enough form to classify. Nobody said what they were thinking. We just went back to the gear. We dropped past the final depth marker at 400 feet. And from that point on, everything changed. The sound of our own movement became softer, slower. The water around us didn't move the same way. It was thicker down here. The lights from our helmets didn't travel far anymore. Even with full beams on, we could only see a few meters ahead. Everything beyond that was just dark. The tunnel kept narrowing. At first, I thought we'd hit a pinch point, but the shape of the walls was too smooth. No rough stone, no debris. The walls didn't look like they'd been worn down by water or time. They were curved inward, almost symmetrical. The surface reflected some of the light back in a soft, muted way, like polished glass or smooth bone. It didn't feel natural. Marcus was in front, unspooling the guideline slowly and locking it into the rock every 10 meters. He didn't speak, just kept the pace steady. I followed its center. Laura was behind me, keeping one hand on the line and one on her tablet. Her light scanned side to side, while the tablet ran a scan of the mineral content. She was quiet too. The dive suits handled the pressure, but I could still feel the difference. It was subtle, like gravity had increased just a little. Every movement took more effort. Every breath had to be measured. This was the kind of depth where mistakes became final. Then the sonar pinged. A slow, clear tone from my wrist unit. I stopped and checked the screen. It flickered once, then again. A shape appeared. Not a reading error. A real form moving far below us. Long, wide, low to the floor of a deeper chamber. It drifted slowly across the screen, then disappeared. I didn't say anything. Neither did Marcus. Laura kept recording. Maybe she didn't see the screen, or maybe she chose not to mention it. We kept moving. The tunnel led to a wide drop-off. It opened suddenly, like stepping to the edge of a cliff. Below us, the cave floor stretched out into a massive basin, flat and wide. Our lights barely reached the far edges. The space was enormous, bigger than anything we'd seen on the maps. It was shaped like a stadium. Laura moved closer to me. She pointed her light down, and that's when we saw them. Shells. Huge, spiraled shells embedded in the cave floor. Dozens. Some stood upright like statues. Others rested on their sides or at angles, partially buried in sediment. They looked like ammonites, those ancient marine creatures, but at a scale that didn't make sense. Marcus broke the silence through comms. Fossils. Ancient. Laura drifted lower, scanning the nearest one. She circled it slowly. No, she began. They're molted. I moved closer and looked again. She was right. These weren't solid fossil shells. They were hollow. The center of each spiral was empty, as if something had pushed its way out from inside. The edges were curled and soft-looking, not stone, something more flexible. They looked like shed skins. None of us moved for a while. I stared at him, and something clicked in my memory, something from the pre-dive briefing. We'd been flown to a secure facility a few days before the mission. The company wanted us to understand what we were being sent after. They didn't give us instructions, just information. There were 4 scientists, 3 men, 1 woman. They spoke slowly, like they were trying not to overstate anything. Each word felt carefully chosen. Nobody checked their watches. Nobody looked bored. They showed us images, cave art pulled from deep underwater chambers in the Caribbean. The drawings were faded, but still clear enough to see the shapes. Long, serpent-like figures, some with dozens of eyes, others with gaping, open bodies. The lines wrapped around small human figures, dragging them inward. Then they showed us drone footage. It was short, only 20 seconds, but it showed a trail of fluid running along a cave wall, glowing faint blue under a special light. Enzyme 42. They told us every sample they'd recovered came from dead sources. Empty shells, dried fluid trails, pieces of membrane caught in filters. Never from a living specimen. The woman on the panel had said it clearly. We've never captured one, never observed one in real time. We only know it exists by what it leaves behind. One of the men added, and the teams that went deepest never came back. Now inside this chamber, Laura hovered just above one of the shells. She scanned it with a tablet, then tagged its location. This isn't fossilized, she began. It's recent. Marcus leaned in. How recent? I don't know, she began. But this isn't rock. It's protein. Organic. The shell's hollow. Look. She reached out with one gloved hand and brushed the surface. A thin layer peeled back, curling away like skin. It floated upward, delicate and light. The rest of the shell didn't move, but now I could see what it really was. Not a fossil, not a rock. It was something that had lived here, something that had grown, then left. And we were right inside the place that it had left behind. The tunnel curved wide after the molted shells. We moved slowly, careful not to kick up the sediment along the floor. The rock gave way to open space. It was larger than we expected. Much larger. The chamber ahead wasn't marked on any map. It looked like a dome, perfectly rounded, with a smooth ceiling and an uneven floor. I could see debris scattered across the bottom. Not stone, not coral. Looked almost man-made. I dropped lower, shining my light across the ground. Tanks. Diving tanks. Some rusted through, others still intact. A few were half buried in the sediment, but most looked like they'd been dropped in a rush. Then I saw the helmets. Some were cracked, others were still whole, lying open like they'd been taken off. One had a name label barely visible through a layer of grime. I didn't recognize it. Then we saw the bodies. Not skeletons. These were something else. Some were just bone, fused into the limestone like fossils. Arms stretched out, legs bent, but others still had shape. Not alive, not fresh, just preserved. Flesh that hadn't rotted, suits that hadn't torn. One diver looked like he was reaching forward, his gloved hand outstretched toward a wall crack. The wall had grown around his fingers, sealing him in. Laura hovered beside me. Her voice came through the comms. "They didn't die fast." Marcus said nothing. He scanned the walls. Laura moved closer to a fissure. A clear fluid leaked from a hairline crack in the stone. It dripped slow, steady, forming a small pool at the base. She pulled out a vial and caught a sample. When she passed her light over the fluid, it reacted. It pulsed, just once, like it knew it was being seen. Laura spoke through the comms again. "It's active. Cell movement. Maybe heat reactive." Marcus floated beside her, eyeing the vial. "Looks like the mucus they have back at the lab." He was right. The samples we'd trained with were always diluted, stabilized. This was raw and unfiltered. Laura sealed the vial and marked it. I watched her hands. She wasn't shaking, but she was working faster now. And that's when the current shifted. It didn't rush or pull right away. It was subtle at first, a slow reversal of direction. Our line began to sway. Particles drifted sideways instead of falling straight down. And then we heard it. A deep groan. Not metal, not rock. It came through the stone itself, long and hollow, like a whale song, slowed down until it barely registered as a tone. We froze. The sound didn't repeat, but something moved above us. Not a ripple, not a swirl, a shape. Long, smooth, moving slow. I pointed my light upward. The beam caught it for half a second. It was massive, longer than any creature I'd ever seen, bigger than a whale. Its skin was translucent, stretched thin like jellyfish membrane, with streaks of blue light running under the surface. The light shifted with its movement, almost like veins. And the eyes, not 2, not 4, a dozen at least, each one set in a different direction. Some looked down, others tracked us. They didn't blink, they just followed. The mouth didn't open, it unfolded. Slits peeled back from the center, revealing rows of short, spiraled limbs, almost like tongues or fingers. They moved on their own, twitching, adjusting, searching. Marcus didn't speak. He didn't aim. He just reacted. The flare gun fired. The chamber filled with white light, and for a second we saw everything. The creature, the size of the dome, the scattered gear, the old bodies. And then the light vanished behind a rising cloud of silt. The flare had hit something, but I couldn't see what. And then the current snapped. It pulled from below. A whirlpool formed near the fissure where Laura had taken the sample. She screamed. Her body dropped fast, yanked downward. Her tether line stretched, then snapped. The scream cut off. I dropped toward the current, but I was too far. I couldn't see her. I only saw the splash of red that followed. It didn't rise quickly. It spread out slow, like smoke in zero gravity. Marcus didn't hesitate. He dove after her. No words, no plan, he just went. I looked down. I waited for a moment. Nothing came back. No movement, no signal. Then the sonar failed. Everything went quiet again, and I was alone. I don't remember surfacing. The last clear thought I had was turning away from the dome chamber. I checked the line and started moving. Every part of me knew to leave, but I don't remember choosing it. I guess I just moved. I followed the guideline like it was the only thing left. It didn't feel like the same line we'd come in on. It felt longer. The turns felt wrong. My hands were slow on the knots. My legs kicked, but my body didn't respond the same way. The pressure had caught up with me. My thoughts felt disconnected, like I was drifting above them. I kept moving forward, but my vision blurred at the edges. My arms shook. One of my eardrums ruptured during the ascent. Left side. Didn't hurt at first. The pain came later, once the cold hit me. I remember trying to check my depth, but I couldn't make out the numbers. My eyes kept fogging up behind the mask. My rebreather began to fail just below the mouth of the sinkhole. The regulator choked once, then gave out. I reached back, unclipped the bailout tank, and made the switch. That part is muscle memory. I know I did it, but I don't remember how fast. From there, I kicked upward. I think I blacked out. Maybe at 60 feet, maybe higher. They told me the rescue boat found me, floating face up near the buoy line. The dive team pulled me on board, and I was half conscious. They said I was still clutching the camera in both hands, pressed tight against my cheek, like it was part of me. I was bleeding from my left ear. My lips were dry and cracked from exposure. There was a tear in my suit along the shoulder seam. The medics said I had a mild case of decompression sickness. They were surprised it wasn't worse. They got me under heat packs and fluids. I remember the deck being cold under my back. I remember the motion of the boat more than the people on it. I couldn't focus on faces. But I was awake when they took the camera. The body camera I wore through the dive had recorded everything. It was heat sealed into the rig and ran on a closed circuit with local backup. Even if it lost signal, it kept recording. The video was mostly useless. The footage was full of silt, low light, and movement blur. The lens was cracked at some point during the descent. Every shift in water pressure distorted the picture. But the audio was clean. In the recovery tent the next morning, they played it back in a loop. A few members of the lab team were there. A couple of the dive coordinators stood off to the side. No one spoke for the first few minutes. Laura's voice came through first. Calm, collected. She was describing shell measurements, maybe trying to log a sample ID. She was surprised, then worried. Then she screamed. The scream was short. Then Marcus's voice, loud but not panicked. He shouted her name once. Then the sound. That same deep hum. It rolled through the speakers like a long underwater breath, slow and wide, like something the size of a building groaning through the stone. It didn't rise or fall. It just moved. Then nothing. No more voices, no impacts, no collapse, no alarms. Just silence. I told them I never found the others. I told them there was no trace, no lights, no movement, no bubbles. I stayed long enough to look, but there was nothing left to follow. They didn't press me. They believed what I said. They didn't ask for details. The company classified the mission under equipment failure. They filed the final report as an accident, environmental instability, site risk, line malfunction. The dive was marked as terminated due to safety loss. No negligence, no foul play. Nobody blamed me. The lab team ran the audio through a review panel. I wasn't invited to those meetings. I read the summary report later, though. The official term they used was indeterminate biological presence. That was all they said about it. They didn't mention the creature, not once. They didn't ask if I'd seen anything. They paid me in full. No bonus for samples, no deduction for failure. Just the standard payout. 2 days later, they sent me a non-disclosure agreement. 10 pages, legal language. I knew what it meant. No public interviews, no papers, no outside communication with universities or media. I signed it, and I moved inward. I didn't want to be near the ocean. I found a small place in the hills. Nothing fancy, no shoreline, no space. I don't dive anymore. I haven't gone near a rebreather or dry suit since that mission. I still have the gear. It's in a locked case I haven't opened in years. The tablet Laura used came back in the same supply crate as my rig, and I kept it. The data logs are encrypted behind a passcode. I've never tried to crack it. I keep telling myself it wouldn't matter. But I still think about what's on it. I think about her voice in the last few seconds of the audio. Calm, then afraid. then gone. Most nights I sleep fine, but when I do dream, I know what I see. It's always the same. A blue glow rising through black water. And that sound. Years have passed since the dive. These days I speak in documentaries, the kind with slow music and wide shots of coral reefs. People ask me about deep sea ecosystems, underwater pressure zones, and rare marine compounds. I give simple answers, clean ones. I talk about regeneration, biodiversity, and bioluminescent organisms. I never mentioned what really happened. The official story is already out there. Equipment failure, compromised line, poor visibility, unstable conditions, 2 divers lost, 1 survivor. Case closed. But when the cameras turn off and the interviews end, I stay behind. I still dive. Not in caves, not anymore. Now I charter submersibles. I fund the trips myself when I have to. Other times I convince labs or universities to lend me equipment. I tell them it's for research. I use old data from the Devil's Throat to write papers about sonar behavior and deep ocean drift patterns. Most of it's true, and the rest is close enough. The real reason I'm out there is simple. I'm hunting. Not with weapons, not even with nets. I just want to see them again. Sea emperors. Since my dive, the number of deep sea sightings has gone up. Not by much, just a few blips on sonar here and there. But they're consistent. Always deep trenches. Always at night. Always the same report, something massive and glowing. Most are dismissed. The Navy calls them sonar ghost, false echoes, geological shifts. They're wrong. I've built a private log. I call it monster patterns. It's not public. Nobody else sees it. Each entry has a time, a location, a depth, and a description. They're not random. They move with the seasons. I started noticing it in the 2nd year. The sightings match the lunar cycle, like how crops follow a cycle of harvest. New moon, 1st quarter, full. It's not about tides. Something beneath the surface is following a pattern. And that pattern is changing. They're moving closer to shore. The first entries were all deep trench zones. Mid-Atlantic Ridge, Puerto Rico Trench. Places that go down 6 miles or more. But now, the latest reports come from the continental shelf. Shallower waters. Fishermen reporting strange lights under their boat. Oil rigs recording structural vibrations they can't explain. I try not to jump to conclusions, but I know what I saw. I remember the eyes tracking me in that chamber with a sense of awareness, like it'd seen 1,000 of me before, and would see 1,000 more. Laura and Marcus are still gone. Their bodies never came back. No signals, no remains, nothing. I still think about what happened in that last second. What they saw, what they felt. Whether it was over quickly. I never talk about them on camera. If someone asks, I change the subject. They deserve more than to be mentioned in passing. I've spoken to a few scientists who continue to study the sea emperors in secret. Some believe that they're part of a forgotten branch of evolution, animals that adapted to pressure and darkness in ways we can't understand. Others think they're still myths. Overactive sonar, old diver stories recycled over beers. I try not to argue with them. I just say one thing. The ocean's not empty. It never was. And we only saw one of them. Hey, I hope you enjoyed the video. Special thank you to all my patrons. If you'd like to become a supporter on Patreon, there's a link in the description. I hope you have a great night, and thanks for watching.